Jim Keady, thank you for speaking with Blue Jersey. Before we get into some of the issues, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Jim Keady. I'm running for the State Assembly in the 30th District, which is made up of towns primarily in the center of New Jersey, on the shore, and some towns west of that. I grew up in this district. I spent my first 10 years in West Belmar, which is a section of Wall, and then my parents bought a lot and built a house in Belmar, where my mother still lives to this day. I currently live in Spring Lake, New Jersey, also in the 30th District, clearly. I went to grammar school in Belmar at St. Rose Grammar School. I then went on to high school at Christian Brothers Academy, an all-boys Catholic school up in Lincroft. From there, I went to St. Joseph's University, Jesuit Catholic University down in Philadelphia. I was a scholarship athlete on the men's varsity soccer team there. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from St. Joe's. And then I also went to graduate school at St. John's University in New York City, where I studied theology, focusing primarily on social ethics and pastoral theology. So along with my academic work, professionally, I was a high school teacher for 5 years at 3 different schools in New York and New Jersey. I taught religion. I also, for about 14 years, did international labor rights work. Back in 97, I was coaching at St. John's University in New York City. I was coaching with the men's soccer program. At the time, we were the NCAA Division I national champions. And while I was coaching, that's when I was going to graduate school, studying theology. And in my first class, Moral Person, Moral Society, I started writing a paper about Nike's labor practices in light of what's called Catholic social teaching. And what I found was, if you wanted to pick a company that violated everything that our Catholic university was supposed to stand for, St. John's University, or Nike rather, was the perfect case study. And at the same time that I'm doing this research and finding out how horribly Nike's treating their workers in the developing world, St. John's University Athletic Department starts to negotiate a $3.5 million endorsement deal with Nike. Part of that deal, I had to wear and promote Nike products. And because of the research that I'd done and what I learned, I said I didn't want to be part of this deal. And eventually I was given an ultimatum: you wear Nike and drop this or get out. I held my ground. I became the first athlete in the world to say no to Nike because of the sweatshop issue. That was big news. I was turned into this instant expert, and I'm doing tons of media interviews for it, getting invited to campuses to speak about it. And in some of the early lectures that I did on the issue, my critics were saying, you don't know what you're talking about, those are great jobs for those poor people. So I wanted to go find out for myself. I eventually moved to Indonesia in the summer of 2000, and I went to go live with Nike factory workers in a slum outside of the capital of Jakarta in a place called Tangerang. And I lived in a 9x9 cement box, rat-infested hellhole, had rats stampeding over the ceiling at night and coming up through the toilet and looking for stuff to eat in the house, and cockroaches crawling over me. And I tried to survive on a Nike sweatshop wage for 1 month. And in the 1 month, living on $1.25 a day, that was Nike's wage at the time, I lost 25 pounds. And I met all of these women and men who had made the stuff that as an athlete and a coach I had worn for years, and I never thought twice about who they were and what their lives were like. And I promised them I would go home, I'd tell their stories, I'd advocate for them. And I thought I was going to do that for 6 or 7 months, and I ended up doing it full time for 14 years. I've been back to Indonesia multiple times. I've been brought down to D.C. to brief members of Congress on the issue. I've been brought in by business leaders, union leaders, presidents of universities to educate them on the issue. I've lectured at more than 500 schools in 44 different states and 3 different countries on the issue. And I did that work full time up until 2013. And then my father passed away. My mother and father, when I was a kid, they were both teachers. My dad taught for 18 years at Neptune High School, which is near the 30th District. It's across the river. And my mother taught at Belmar Elementary School, which is in the 30th District. Then when I was about 10 years old, my parents bought a tavern in Waretown, New Jersey, and my family has had that for 33 years. When my dad passed away, I was thrust into having to run it for my mother. So I had to take my labor rights work and put it on the side, and I do that very part-time now. And now I run an Irish tavern in Ocean County, New Jersey, which, in running for assembly, it really helps me to have an understanding of what small business owners are going through. To have to deal with the payroll issues, the tax issues, the government regulations, having to meet a bottom line every month, in terms of fiscal responsibility, knowing that you can only spend what you have, and if you're going to borrow, it better be a smart investment, and you better be able to pay it back and be able to get a good return on that. So I've been doing that for the past year and a half or so. Really invigorated the tavern, brought a lot of new ideas and new life to the business. It's something I'm very excited about and happy for my family, particularly my mother. And I also am a single father. I have a 6-year-old daughter, Reese Keady, and she goes to school here in the district at the Catholic school, St. Catherine's. And I love being a dad. Certainly, that's an important part of my life. I still play soccer on a fairly competitive level. I play for one of the most prestigious amateur clubs on the East Coast, Jersey Shore Boca.
What position do you play?
I'm a goalkeeper. I played soccer professionally for 3 years. When I was right in the middle of the coaching stint at St. John's University, I was playing for a team called the North Jersey Imperials. We were a minor league affiliate of the Metro Stars, which is now New York Red Bull. I was the backup goalkeeper to Tim Howard. For those people watching this who are soccer fans, they'll know that Tim is our #1 goalkeeper for the U.S. national team. I'm a proud member, a founding member of the New Jersey Organizing Project, and that's the group that I got involved with. It was just forming as a group when we took the action in October 29th in Belmar, to try to engage the governor on Hurricane Sandy issues. It's all happened in a very organic way. Earlier in October, I was at the Climate Change March in New York City, and hundreds of thousands of people marching in the streets of New York. And I ended up marching next to 6 people from New Jersey who were Hurricane Sandy survivors. And I started listening to their stories, and the lead organizer that was with them, my good friend Amanda, she and I started to talk. I was telling her a bit about my organizing background, and we agreed to meet up for some beers and see what we could do to help these Sandy families. And after she and I had met, there was also a meeting with about 8 or 9 Sandy survivors at a library in one of the small towns in Ocean County that had been hit really hard. And that group decided, I couldn't be there that day, that we needed to engage the governor, that his policies were failing them, that he wasn't delivering on his promises. And in 2014, in his State of the State address, he said this would be a top priority of his administration to get Sandy families back in their homes, that he would not rest, that it was his mission. And here we were 2 years out, and you have more than 15,000 families that are still struggling to get back into their homes.
Okay, you talk about engaging the governor. Tell us about the incident when you met the governor. What were the circumstances, and what was your reaction?
So we planned just to do a silent action. We were going to make posters up and just hold the posters up and try to get the governor's attention and see what happened. In 2014, the governor was absent from his job for more than 100 days. I mean, think about any other public employee. If they were a no-show on their job for a third of the year, I don't think they would have their job anymore. And I was just standing there silent with the poster. The governor started to verbally engage me. I used it as an opportunity to have a conversation as best I could. I had said to the governor, we have this $1.1 billion fund that the federal government gave us. As of today, only $219 million has gone out the door. Where's the other $800 million? He then started to do a bit of an ad hominem attack on me, saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to do the work. You need to roll up your sleeves, which I took some umbrage with, given that, right after the hurricane hit, I stopped everything, dropped everything that I was doing, and for about a month, volunteered every day in Belmar, the town I grew up in that was hit really hard by the hurricane. And not only did I roll up my sleeves, I was covered in muck, broken sewage. The sewers broke, so you got sewage mixed in with the salt water, mixed in with the water from the lake, and all the other mud and muck, and crawling around in that and clearing out people's basements and dragging their belongings out to the curb and trying to get people safe and stabilized so that then the rebuilding process could begin. And that rebuilding process was supposed to be done through the state's REM program, the Rehabilitation, Reconstruction, Elevation, and Mitigation Program, and that's what this $1.1 billion was supposed to go towards. It has been a complete failure. The 14,800 families that had initially applied, it's now been winnowed down to about 10,800. How that drop happened, we're still not sure because there's no real transparency on it. But of the somewhere between 10 and 14,000, only 328 homes have been rebuilt and are reoccupied. It's a 97% failure rate. Now, as a small business owner, If 97% of my customers had a bad experience, I'm out of business. And the governor should be put out of business for his lack of performance with this particular program, given that he has said it is the top priority of his administration.
Okay, but in this election, you're really not running against the governor. You're running against incumbent Republicans in a district where Republicans outnumber Democrats. What is your road to victory?
Sure. You know, a lot of people have said, oh, you can't win, it's a Republican district. When you look at the numbers, there's about 37 to 39,000 registered Republicans in the district, 23,000 Democrats, 66,000 unaffiliated independent voters. The district isn't Republican, nor is it Democrat. The district is independent. And even those people who are registered as a Republican, I grew up in this district. These aren't party ideologues. You know, these aren't people that are just diehard and will always just vote R right down the line. These are intelligent people. These are well-educated people. They're civically engaged. They want to know the issues. They want to know where you stand on the issues. They want to know what you're going to promise them in terms of what you want to bring to Trenton. And then also, do you have the personal and professional background to deliver on the promises that you're going to make? So I'm going to go out there on the campaign trail. This is going to be grassroots, brass knuckles campaigning, you know, going door to door, block to block, neighborhood to neighborhood, and engaging voters and wanting to earn their vote. You know, and I don't want people to look at the letter that's next to my name, even those people that are Democrats who might be aligned simply on party lines. I want people to judge me for who I am, what I say I'm going to do, what I've done in the past that would lead them to believe that I can deliver on the things that I say I'm going to do.
Let's go to some specific issues, some of which you've listed in your literature and some which I'm really not sure where you stand. Let's start off with the environment. I think we can agree that the governor has not been a good steward of the environment. If you get elected, what would your priorities be towards the environmental problems we have here in New Jersey?
Sure. We have one that's very immediate in the district, which is the dredging of the Shark River. I grew up on the Shark River, and the river's dying. At a very low tide, you can almost walk across the river from Belmar to Shark River Hills. And that's because there hasn't, one, the dredging hasn't happened in decades. And the other part is that because of all the building that's been done on both sides of the river, in Neptune and Wall Township, and because the protections weren't put in on those building sites, you've had massive runoffs into the river. It has to be dredged. There's no question about it. Now, the incumbents said back in 2009 that they would get it done. They would work with their colleagues who represent the other towns, work with the local officials. Politics wouldn't get in the way. The river had to be dredged. Well, here we are in 2015, and the job's not done. And one of the things that is troubling to me is that Sean Keane, who's one of the assembly people that currently holds office, he is the attorney for the Wall Township Committee. The Wall Township Committee is the one town that's holding out. Now, I was at the committee meeting last week, and I do have hope with their new mayor. He seems like a very reasonable man, that he's willing and open to hearing a real plan to get the dredging done, because the site that the DEP has chosen is in Wall Township in the old Camp Evans area, which was federal land that was given to Wall Township. There are millions of dollars in terms of jobs and tourism money that comes to this region because of that river. Now, with regard to other environmental issues, I think we need to be looking at increasing our solar output in terms of limiting our reliance on fossil fuels. So I think we need to be looking at solar projects. I think we need to be looking at wind projects. I'm open to anything that can bring down our reliance on fossil fuels.
Another area of concern for the environment, and I realize it's a federal issue, but there's got to be something the state can do about it, and that is offshore drilling. Some folks in Congress, even from New Jersey, have said they should allow states to determine whether or not there should be offshore drilling, yet the oil doesn't know state boundaries from other states. Is there anything that you would be able to do in the state legislature to put the brakes on offshore drilling, which, if there's a spill, might hurt the tourism industry right here in town?
So with regard to offshore drilling, I'm not sure if there's anything specifically that the legislature could do in a legal sense, because I do think these are federal issues. But that doesn't mean you can't use the bully pulpit. It doesn't mean that you can't remind those federal officials that they also need the votes and the support from their constituents in their home states. I don't think that we should be drilling off the coast of New Jersey. If there were to be an oil spill somewhere off our coast, it would be disastrous. There are billions of dollars that are spent on tourism in New Jersey every year, and the highest concentration of where that money's spent are on the 4 oceanfront counties in New Jersey: Monmouth, Ocean, Atlantic, Cape May. If we were to have an oil spill off our shore, not only would it be a catastrophe with regard to the environment and all the after effects of that, but economically speaking, it would be a disaster for our tourist industry.
Well, let's move on to another issue that you've identified as important, and that is education. It seems like we're spending more and more money on education. Are we getting the results for that money, and what changes, if any, would you propose should you be elected?
Sure. I think when we look at the education issue, we look at the dollars spent, you really have to look at the district. These are district by district, or there needs to be district by district analyses. I used to be a councilman in the city of Asbury Park. The city of Asbury Park, the school district, spends more per pupil than any other district in the state. And yet, at the high school, only 51% of the kids graduate. That problem is not going to get solved purely by what happens in the school from 7:30 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon. These are community issues that are tied up or related to economic development issues, job issues, crime issues. So I think to have an overarching plan for how we best spend tax dollars on education may be a little short-sighted. We really have to get into the district by district issues, and I think that's one of the problems we're seeing with the park testing and the Common Core standards. In theory, I think the Common Core standards and the idea behind it is great. Here, if you had a fourth grader in New Jersey and a fourth grader in West Virginia, a fourth grader in Hawaii, a fourth grader in California, the idea is that all of them should be able to be measured and understanding of a certain base of knowledge by the end of fourth grade. In practice, what is happening is that we're trying to measure that with a half-baked metric, which is the park test. I don't think we've engaged our educators enough, the teachers, the people that are in the front lines, on how to best do this. And are we listening to the teachers and the administrators in the feedback that they're giving? We pay our teachers very well in New Jersey, and they should be paid well. They're responsible for our kids 8 hours out of the day. We need to trust in those professionals. We need to be asking the questions of them. Right? I think part of the problem is the policies are getting developed in the State House, and I'm not sure, but my gut tells me not many people that are in the State House were classroom teachers. I was. So one of the first things that I would do is go out to the schools within my district, sit with teachers, sit with administrators, and I plan to do this on the campaign trail, and listen. And then once I listen and I have the feedback from them, then I can start to do the objective analysis. I'm not going to make any overarching policy prescriptions without finding out from the people that are on the front lines what exactly is wrong and how they would fix it. And if I feel that the information that I get from those teachers and administrators is sound and it's grounded in solid educational theory, and we can afford it in terms of what we would have to pay to make whatever it is they're suggesting happen, then that's what I would advocate for.
Of course, in New Jersey politics, the elephant in the room is the underfunded pension plan. I wouldn't expect you to go to Trenton on a white horse and have the solution, but how would you approach that should you be elected?
A couple of things that I would suggest when I get to the Assembly. One is that we need to look at how the pension plan is being managed. From the time that Governor Christie took office until today, we've doubled the amount of money that's being spent on fees to the Wall Street firms that are managing that fund. I think we need to get away from that. I would recommend that we create the New Jersey Asset Management Company, where we would put professionals, we would recruit talent out of Wall Street, people that live in New Jersey, people that know how to manage these kinds of assets, make them civil servants, make the jobs attractive, make the salaries competitive, put an office in Princeton, New Jersey, so you can say to whomever it is that you're bringing in, it's going to be a great place to work, you could live in a great community, or even if you lived somewhere else in New Jersey, Princeton's about an hour from anywhere in New Jersey, and instead of having to hoof it into Manhattan every morning and going an hour and 45 minutes there, an hour and 45 minutes back, you'd be able to get home in a reasonable hour and see your kids and have a more comfortable life. And I think if we were to take the assets and manage them in-house with civil servants who were professionals, we could also stop the pension fund from being the political football that it's been. There need to be professionals, also with a professional advisory board that would be utilizing the proper financial metrics to ensure that as the pension fund is being managed, that the sole responsibility of those people managing it is their fiduciary responsibility to the pensioners. Now, with regard to the underfunded mandate, the court has been quite clear that the state needs to pay its bill. Now, if we are struggling to do that, clearly we are. If there is a need for renegotiation so we can bring down the cost of the burden that we have, that conversation needs to be had with dignity and respect. The public employees, the police, the firemen, the teachers, they're not our enemies. As a kid, certainly both my parents were teachers, and you were taught to respect teachers, parents, cops, to look up to them. They were the heroes in the community. And, the governor and those people that support him in the legislature, they've demonized these people. Okay? Again, the professionals, they were made a promise that they would have a pension, that it would be funded, and that it would be managed properly. That is not the case. We need to do our best to try to deliver on those promises. And if there is a need for renegotiation, it needs to happen with the utmost dignity and respect for our public servants.
Final topic. Every time this is brought up in Trenton, there's a lot of contentious debate, and that is gun control or gun safety. New Jersey has some strict gun laws, and yet the governor has vetoed what some people would consider some common sense restrictions. Where do you stand on that, and what would you bring to Trenton in that area?
Sure. It's the gun control issue is not one that I'm very well versed on. That would be one that, again, I would want to go out and I would want to listen to the gun owners who are advocating for their position, for the people that are looking for more restrictions. The people that I know who are gun owners, who are hunters, are responsible. It's not the responsible gun owners that we have to worry about. It's the criminals who get a hold of the guns and do bad stuff with them. How we regulate that, to be very frank, I'm not completely sure. But I can tell you this. Whether it's this issue or any other issue that I might not have a complete handle on, I'm never going to pander to you and try to make up an answer on the spot. What I will do, now that you've asked this question, it will go on my list on my desk, and I will do my homework over the course of the next few weeks. And if you come back and ask me this question in 3 or 4 weeks' time, you can bet that I will have a much more solid answer for you, and I will have a position. People may not agree with that position, but I will have it. And that's another thing that I've shared with voters. I won't pander to anybody. I'm not looking for any big money to fund my campaign. I want my campaign to be funded of, for, and by the people with small donations from thousands and thousands of people. If I make a promise, I will do my best to keep it. If I can't, I'll tell you why. If you ask me a question, I will be as honest with you as I can, even if you don't like the answer. And that's who I am. That's how I operate. Hopefully, that would make me your candidate. If it doesn't, that's fine. Then I'm not your guy. Then there are other people. That's why we live in a representative democracy. You could cast your vote for someone who does better align with your concerns and interests. All I ask is that you give me a fair hearing, that you learn about who I am as a person, and that's why I've shared the information that I've shared with you today about my personal background, that you learn about my platform. I've discussed some of those issues that I'm fairly well versed on. Others, clearly, I need to do a little more research on. And then come election day, over the course of the next 7 months, I hope that you would do your homework as a voter and then go into the ballot box and vote your conscience. And I hope that you'll be voting for Jim Keady.
So if people want to contact your campaign, how do they do that?
Sure. My campaign website is still in the process of being built out. So in the meantime, people can reach me on Facebook at facebook.com/Jim Keady, JimKeady, or they can find me on Twitter at JWKeady, Keady. They can always email me at KeadyForAssembly@gmail.com, or you can call or text me at 732-988-7322.
Jim Keady, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.